Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep. Welcome to this special session where we shall be talking about how to prepare for the prelims examination for the subject of geography. Now, the prelims examination is rightly touted to be one of the most difficult phases in the entirety of the journey of civil services. And that is because it is in this phase where the content material, the syllabus to be covered is so humongous, so enormous, that many of the candidates, they face problem when it comes to revision. And also, many of the times we are unable to fathom which areas to focus upon and which are the areas that we can ignore. What are the approaches that one needs to take in order to maximize his or her chances for the examination? So in this video, we shall be talking about the detailed syllabus breakup, the subject materials and the study materials that one needs to refer to, and also what are the approaches that one needs to follow in the different aspects and the different parts of geography in order to maximize their chances. So, before anything else, let me focus upon the importance of this subject for the prelims exam. Now, as you can see with the help of the chart in front of you, that every year, close to around 15 questions, 10 to 15 questions on an average are asked directly from this particular portion of examination. Now, the questions that are asked directly from geography, that is something that you can target very easily if you have a comprehensive coverage of the syllabus. But other than that, also the portions which are covered under environment and ecology. Environment and ecology. So every year you get close to around 10 to 12 questions from environment and ecology as well. And as a candidate, if you are well versed with the subject of geography, you are well versed with the climatic conditions, with the geophysical realities of different places, then out of these 10 to 12 questions, you can easily target around 5 to 6 based upon your knowledge of geography itself. So think about it. Every year, close to around 20 questions of prelims can be targeted if you are thorough in this subject. That comes out to be around 1/5 of the total prelims question paper. And that is a significant chunk. Even if, let us say, you maintain an efficiency level of close to around 75%, that also would give you a significant amount of boost in the prelims exam, and you would naturally come in the merit list and you would be eligible to apply for the mains exam as well. So, this subject, no doubt, is very, very important. Then how to approach this subject? But before that, one needs to be aware of what is the requirement of the candidate when it comes to this examination and this subject, and for that, one needs to look into the syllabus. So the notification mentions the syllabus requirement for the subject of geography. But as you can see in front of your screen, the syllabus is mentioned in a one sentence only. So the syllabus says Indian and world geography, the physical, social, economic geography of India and the world. So here, as a candidate, one person is supposed to know about the physical geography, the social and economic geography, not only of India, but also around the world. So that requires some bit of in-depth study as well. Now, this particular sentence does not give us that greater a clue regarding what is exactly required. So let us go for a detailed syllabus breakup. Let us understand what is required under physical geography, what is required under the aspect of Indian geography, and what is required under the aspect of human and economic geography. Now, each of these portions are significantly important, and from each of these portions, you necessarily will find questions coming not only in the prelims examination, but also in the mains exam. So when we go for the detailed syllabus breakup, under the aspect of physical geography, as a candidate, one needs to cover the portions of geomorphology, and there are 3 broader units. Then you have the portion of climatology, and then you come across the portion of oceanography. Now, Under geomorphology, again, one has to study the aspects of various different land features and the events which do happen on the land, and also the forces which lead to the movement of the landforms and creation of the landforms that we see around ourselves. So here you have to cover portions such as interior of the earth. You have to cover various different theories such as the continental drift theory, the plate tectonics theory, and also the convectional current theory. Convectional current theory. These three theories, that is the continental drift, the plate tectonics, as well as the convectional current theory, every year or almost every other year, you will find a multiple choice question being framed from this area. You also need to cover portions such as seafloor spreading theory. So these theories, they help us understand about how the land behaves. What are the various forces which are acting in the interior of the earth? We know that the planet is quite old. The age of planet is considered to be roughly around 4.5 billion years old. So since that point onwards, the planet has been evolving in its structure as well. There is a lot of heat trapped in the interior of the planet, which leads to significant amount of forces acting from the inside. And those forces, they are referred to as endogenic forces. So these endogenic forces, they lead to large-scale movement of the land masses, like the Indian land mass moving against the Eurasian land mass and creating giant landforms such as the Himalayas. Now, when these land masses, they end up moving with respect to each other, they also give rise to certain geophysical events and characteristics such as earthquakes and volcanoes. So, all those also definitely become very, very important to be covered under the portion of physical geography. Then you also have various different landforms which are created as a result of the erosional process as well as the depositional process. Erosional and depositional processes. Those landforms are also important from the prelims perspective. For example, a glacier moves from one region to another. But while the movement is carried on, the glacier manages to erode some substances and also eventually deposits those substances in various different shapes and sizes, thereby creating features such as cirques, arêtes, horns, drumlins, eskers, moraines, and so on. So all these individual terminologies, they are going to be very, very important. The terminologies need to be looked into. Then after that, you have the portion of climatology. Climatology overall is considered to be the single most important unit in understanding the entirety of the geography portion, because this climatology not impacts impacts us directly, because due to climate change and other factors, we are able to experience the changing climatic conditions on a daily basis. So that is where we are able to understand how the climate is changing, and this is what UPSC requires out of the candidates as well. In this portion of climatology, as a candidate, you are expected to cover atmosphere and its various properties. And when we say atmosphere and properties, by that we mean the various different portions such as the wind patterns, the pressure systems, the jet streams in existence, the various different circulation models, the climatic conditions and climatic distribution which exists across the globe, and also factors such as El Nino, La Nina circulations and how do they impact India overall. This portion of climatology is highly conceptual, and here you find questions which are concept based. Here you end up finding questions asking the candidates to identify why certain areas are significantly drier in some parts of the year and why certain areas receive an excessive amount of rainfall distributed throughout the year. So here the study and the approach has to be concept based. Then, in the portion of oceanography, one is required to understand the oceans of the world. And when we talk about the oceans of the world, here you are supposed to understand the physical properties of the water, physical properties, and in physical properties, you have to look into the temperature conditions, you have to look into the salinity conditions, and also the aspect of circulations. Circulations in the form of ocean currents. And these ocean currents are prevalent all across the planet. It is not only restricted to any particular ocean or any particular region of the planet. It is basically prevalent all across the planet. So that is why this portion of oceanography requires you to understand what goes on in the Atlantic Ocean, what are the events which unfold in the Pacific Ocean, and what is observed in the Indian Ocean. And why does it happen? So here again, concept-based questions are oftentimes asked. So this is the detailed breakup of the portion of physical geography. And when you approach the physical geography portion, here you also have to look into the aspect of the entire globe and the entire planet. So the approach is something that we will discuss very shortly. But before that, let us understand the detailed breakup of the portion of Indian geography. Now, in the portion of Indian geography, you have to cover the portion of India's physiography. Now, please understand, there's a kind of a pattern to it. Why is it that we are required to study Indian geography? That is because, and so that we understand our own country better. But is Indian geography a separate unit from the portion of the physical geography? Can we start reading Indian geography without understanding physical geography? The answer is no. Indian geography, when we talk about, we are basically talking about the conceptual application of the portion of physical geography put into the Indian context. So when we talk about physiography of India, we are talking about the geomorphological aspect. Geomorphological aspect. So here, as a candidate, one needs to be very sure about why is it that there are mountains in the northern part of the country. Why is it that the peninsular region is a plateau region which is rich in mineral deposits? What are the types of rocks which are in existence? Now, you don't necessarily need to learn all the various different types of rocks, all the various different types of terrain which are present across the entirety of the country, but you definitely need to be aware of the basic kinds of differentiation which exists in the plain region, to the plateau region, to the mountain region, to the hill region, to the shelf area around the maritime regions of the country. Which are the island territories of India and what are their importances? For example, even the events such as the volcanic eruption, volcanoes and earthquakes, which are present and which are observed across the country, that also needs to be covered in significant detail. And all this will come with the approach and the understanding of physical geography. For this, you don't necessarily need to put in extra effort into some other portion. If you are very well and very clear in the aspect of geomorphology, this portion of physiography can be covered very easily. Then comes the portion of Indian climate. And in the aspect of Indian climate, one needs to cover the portion of Indian seasons that we experience, rainfall distribution that we have, and overall the phenomena and the behavior of the monsoons. Why is it that in certain years we do receive a higher amount of rainfall? Why is it that certain parts of the country such as the northwestern parts such as Punjab, Himachal, Uttarakhand, Haryana, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh and so on, they end up receiving rainfall even during the winter months? And why certain areas such as the Tamil Nadu coastline, they don't receive rainfall during the advancing phase of monsoon, but they do receive copious amount of rainfall during the retreating phase of monsoon? So monsoon is one of those phenomena that you need to attack in significant amount of detail. Then comes the river systems of India. Now, as a country, we are blessed with a humongous amount of rivers and numerous rivers which drain our country from north to south. So here, the types of questions which are framed generally in the prelims examination is the type of rivers or the various different rivers and their tributaries that are asked in the various different types of questions which are framed. So here, one needs to address the tributaries of the major rivers. And also, sometimes the questions have been asked regarding the major cities which lie across the banks of these rivers. For example, you have the city of Lucknow, which does lie on the bank of river Gomti. But very close by, you have the city of Kanpur, which lies on the banks of river Ganga. So that is where UPSC can frame a kind of a match the following type of questions in the objective pattern. And then also the natural vegetation. And when we talk about natural vegetation, here we talk about the forest types. And these forest types, if you again approach them individually, it will be a very difficult task to understand. Always try to interrelate the various topics. So if one has got a significant amount of clue regarding the rainfall distribution, that automatically gives you an idea about what kind of forests will grow in that particular region. And when we talk about the forest types, here examples of trees along with the regional spread of the forests. Regional spread of the forests. That is also very, very important. So that is where the Indian geography portion becomes important, because regardless of whatever may be the pattern of examination of the prelims, regardless of whatever may be the amount of questions from various parts of the content as it is distributed, you will always necessarily find questions coming from Indian geography. You cannot ignore Indian geography. In fact, the very basic reason why UPSC wants you to study the subject of geography is to check whether you have some understanding about Indian geography or not. And then comes the further subclassification into human and economic geography. In the aspect of human and economic geography, one is expected to study the portions of soil types, right, and associated issues. What do we mean by associated issues? We mean issues such as soil erosion, soil degradation, and also once you are studying about the problems, you also need to be aware of issues such as soil conservation, how to go about conserving the soil. What are the various methodologies, such as you have cover cropping, mulching, contour bunding, contour terracing, all those need to be covered in significant detail. Then after that, one needs to cover the portion of agriculture. Now agriculture as a portion, as a content in the examination is becoming increasingly important year after year. Year after year, you will find UPSC to be asking more number of questions from agriculture in the portion of the prelims. And why is it so? That is because as a country, we are facing increasingly larger number of problems when it comes to the sector of agriculture. This is a sector which is being focused upon to improve its efficiency and overall improve the farm income. Because if you concentrate upon the sector of agriculture, this is the sector which does provide some kind of employment, direct or indirect, to more than around 50% of our population, but manages to contribute only around 15% to the overall economy. So that is where this sector is under increased focus, not only in the prelims but also in the mains exam. Under agriculture, what is it that you need to cover? So you need to cover crop types, and also the conditions required, the various different types of conditions required for those individual crops, then the regional spread of these crop types. Now again, if you approach it individually, it will be kind of a rote learning exercise. So always try to study agriculture after you have covered the portion of climate, the portion of soil. And that will give you an idea regarding where the soil is more fertile and where is it that you receive greater amount of rainfall. And accordingly, you will get an idea that where crops such as paddy or rice is grown and where crops such as jowar, bajra and other forms of millets which require very less amount of rainfall, where is it that the conditions are ideal for those kinds of crops. And also, here you have newer innovations which are important. They are also asked quite repeatedly. Then after that comes the portion of minerals and industries, and also the portion regarding population, settlement, the types of settlement that we have, rural settlement, urban settlement, the settlement patterns, you have linear settlement, circular settlement, etc. And also the aspect regarding transportation. So these are the portions that come under the category of human and economic geography. Now here when we talk about the aspect of minerals and industries, generally again, from this portion, you get questions regarding the mineral distribution. You get direct question regarding whether iron is to be found in the region of Rajasthan or not. Now again, if you approach it individually, it will be a very difficult exercise for you to cover this portion. You will be left with no other option than to rote learn the entirety of the syllabus. So that should not be done. Ideally, what do I advise you is to cover this after you have gained a significant idea about the physiographic divisions of the country. Because once you are aware of the physiographic divisions, you will be more aware about which are the older and mineral rich areas of the country. We know that the peninsular part of the country is the oldest landform that India has. Now in that aspect, once we know that the peninsular part of the country has been created billions of years ago, so naturally the top portion of that peninsular part of the country would be eroded and the bottom portions which now are being exposed would be definitely very rich in terms of minerals. So that provides a kind of an easy consumption. So this, the detailed syllabus breakup, after we have looked into it, now let us take a look at how to approach individually. So the approach for physical geography. Now, here in physical geography, generally you find certain aspects regarding the geographical processes, then terminologies, and then the concepts. Now, questions are asked from these three categories. So, when we talk about the planet Earth and its creation, for example, now that formation of planet Earth has happened over a period of billions of years. And during that process of formation, various different materials, they arrange themselves to form what is the present day structure of the planet. Now that is a kind of a process. That process gives rise to various different layers. For example, you have the asthenosphere, you have the portion of lithosphere, you have the portion of barosphere, and so on. Now, that gives rise to terminology. So once you are aware of the geographical and the geomorphological processes, then you will be very well versed with the terminologies. And both of them taken together gives rise to a kind of a concept. For example, take for example a condition of a climatic factor at play. Now suppose we talk about the atmosphere And there we talk about the wind which blows from one region of the planet to the other. Now, when we talk about the winds moving from one region to another, in certain areas, those winds will bring rainfall. In certain areas, those winds will render that region to be dry deserts. So that is a kind of a process which leads to a conceptual understanding. That why is it that when you have, let's say, a mountainous region, a wind which approaches the mountain, on one side of the mountain, it forms significant amount of cloud cover and it causes heavy rainfall. Whereas on the other side, it causes dry conditions. Right? So why does it happen? What are the factors which lead to it? Now, once you will know about this process, once you are aware about the concept of it, then after that, look at whether in any other portion of the globe there is this particular phenomena which is observed. You'll find that yes, particularly in the region of North America, in the region of Central Asia, you have many areas which are dry because the wind is moving down the mountain slope. So then, once you study those, then you come across certain terminologies such as adiabatic heating, such as the factor of inland deserts, and that is where prelims type questions are always framed. So in physical geography, many of us, we have the idea that we should study based upon terminologies, we should start learning the terminologies, but that is an absolutely wrong approach. First of all, one should approach the geographical processes which unfold. Then, once you are aware of the geographical processes, then look at the world map. Always look at the world map. In fact, the coverage of world geography should be done in the portion of physical aspect itself. Because once you are able to look at a physical aspect such as the formation of, let's suppose, fold mountains. Now, where across the world you have the fold mountains in existence? You have the Rockies in North America, Andes in South America, Atlas in the region of Africa, Alps in the region of Europe, Himalayas in the region of Asia, so on and so forth. Now, in each of these individual cases, identify why is it and which process is it that would have led to this scenario. You would always need to cover certain important concepts in order to understand the process. Which concepts? Concepts such as, let's say, plate tectonics in geomorphology, concepts such as oceanic circulation, thermohaline circulation, concepts such as the portion of climatology we talk about, the pressure belts, the dynamic pressure belts, the thermal pressure belts, those need to be covered significantly. Because when UPSC twists the questions, twists the concept, you should not be found wanting in that respect. So that is where here the approach should be trifurcated. First, the processes, terminologies, and also the concepts. And here, the coverage should be done in the aspect of the globe. In each of the various subunits of geomorphology, climatology, and oceanography, one should keep a track of where all these processes unfold themselves across the planet. That will give you a much greater and an in-depth understanding of the world geography as well. Then when we come to the portion of Indian geography has to be studied under two aspects. The aspects of the understanding of your portion of physical geography, and then the portion of current affairs. Now, when we say understanding of physical geography, as we have already discussed, this will help you solve certain conceptual questions such as why is it that earthquakes occur in greater proportion and greater frequency across the Himalayan foothills? Why is it that Barren Islands is the only active volcano present across the country? Why is it that the peninsular landscape is the oldest landmass across the country? All these aspects should be covered here. But then, every year if you take a look at the question paper for the prelims, you find certain very factual questions. Now, oftentimes the candidates are left scratching their heads that we have studied so many books, but still we did not cover these factual portions. So, what is it that we should do overall? So that is where one needs to keep in mind that when it comes to the aspect of Indian geography, the portion of current affairs is vitally important. And why is it important? Because here you will find that every year if a river system is in news or a newer method of irrigation is in news, now those types of questions, they oftentimes find their usage in the examination. So that is why current affairs should always be kept in mind, particularly for the portion of human and economic geography. Now, you have also had questions being asked from this area. Earlier, you had questions being asked from this area from the portions of if a particular tree is in use, for example, red sanders, and the smuggling of red sanders was in significant bit of news. So then, this smuggling, why is it happening? That is a different matter altogether, which can be asked in the mains portion. But then, which kind of tree is it? Is it a tropical rainforest? Is it a dry deciduous kind of forest? All that kind of applied questions can also be asked from this portion. So here current affairs in Indian geography becomes very, very important. Now, once we are aware of the approach, then after that, let us take a look at the source list, the subject list, and the materials that one needs to cover. Now, when you go out in the market, everybody will give you various different kinds of recommendations that you have to study this book, that book, so on and so forth. Just keep the material list simple and concise. Always remember one basic factor. It is always advisable to cover the single book 10 times rather than covering 10 books which you can read only once. So, the aspect of revision is vitally important to score in the prelims paper. So with that in aspect, always restrict your book list to NCERTs. Now, which NCERTs are we talking about? We are talking about the NCERTs of 11th and 12th. That is it. Keep on repeating these NCERTs again and again. But NCERTs are unlike your other reference books that you come across. Because in NCERTs, each and every sentence can have a concept hidden inside it. So that is why NCERT coverage needs to be significantly in-depth. And when you cover these NCERTs, you always have to validate each and every aspect with various examples that you see around yourself. Now, many of the times the candidates, they face certain difficulties in covering the NCERTs of 11th and 12th. So in that case, there is nothing to worry about and you should immediately go to the NCERTs again of 6th to 10th. NCERTs of 6th to 10th. Okay? So in case your knowledge or your information for the subject of geography is not very proficient, start with the NCERT of class 6 level. That will give you a basic understanding. And nobody can claim that NCERT of class 6 level is absolutely not comprehensible. Provided that you are appearing for the civil services examination, 6th level NCERT is something that you should easily understand. So after you have covered 6th to 10th NCERT, then go for the NCERTs of 11th and 12th and keep on repeating this process. Ideally, one should aim to cover this entire book list at least thrice before appearing for the prelims examination. Only then can you expect yourself to retain all the various processes, terminologies, as well as the various theories. But the most important book in your entirety of your preparation shall be the atlas. Now, any atlas that you like, any atlas that you come across can be taken as a reference material. And when we talk about atlas, here, atlas needs to be understood in terms of the various maps that you have. You have the physical map and also you have the political map. Both of them need to be understood. and understood with the aspect of the coverage of the static portion as well as the coverage of current affairs. For example, let us say you have studied the portion of, let's say, global climatic distribution. You have studied the factor that there is a kind of a Mediterranean type of climate which exists in the southern part of Europe. Now open up the atlas. Now try to look at the wind pattern in the southern part of Europe. Try to figure out why is it that here you have moisture carrying winds present during the winter season but not during the summer season. For example, let us say you have come across the formation of fold mountains. Open up the atlas. Look at the various portions of the planet where you do have the fold mountains in existence. So that will enrich your physical geography and understanding of physical geography. Now, when you come across the portion of current affairs, for example, recently Afghanistan has been in news quite repeatedly. And that is because of the reasons of the troops pull out from the region of Afghanistan and a kind of a chaos which unfolded thereafter. Now, UPSC in the year 2022 asked a direct question regarding which are the countries which share their boundary with Afghanistan. Now, for that, political map is important. Now, do you think UPSC wants you to look at all the various countries and all their valid boundaries? No. UPSC only expects the candidates to be aware of the current realities of the current situation, and that is where questions are framed from. And that brings us to the aspect of the current affairs. The current affairs will form the additional reading which needs to be carried out. And this will help you not only in the subject of geography but across entirety of the spectrum. When we talk about the newspapers are an absolute must. So either the Hindu or the Indian Express needs to be covered dutifully every day. And this needs to be done for the entirety of your preparation. And this has to become a habit. Only then can you expect yourself to have a kind of a sustained approach and a sustained attack for the examination as well. Then you have magazines such as Down to Earth. Down to Earth gives you an idea regarding rainfall patterns as they change. They give you an idea about the current condition of forest cover. They give you an idea about the aspect of human and economic geography as well. So this portion of human and economic geography can be covered aptly if you cover this portion and if you are regular with the portion of Down to Earth. So that is where the additional reading needs to supplement what you have studied under the static portion. Just carry these basic things side by side. NCERTs and the portion of newspapers. Newspapers, I am sure you would be studying anyways when you are preparing for the civil services. So carry this basic portion, repeat it again and again, and you will find yourself to be in a very good position. Now, overall, if we take a look at few of the previous year questions, we will understand why is it that basics need to be attacked. Take a look at the question. Among the following, which one is the least water efficient crop? Now here what is asked? A candidate is expected to know the conditions required for growing a type of a crop, the amount of water requirement. Now here, crops such as millets and grams, that are pulses, they are very water efficient. They consume very little amount of water. Whereas crops such as sugarcane, they consume or they require close to around 100 centimeter of rainfall annually. So that is where one needs to be able to understand the basics regarding the crop requirements and also their regional spread, because questions are also asked from that aspect, that in which parts of the country a certain kind of crop is grown. Then if you take a look at another type of question, you also have conceptual question. Look at this. This is a kind of a conceptual question. Now, consider the following statements. In the tropical zone, the western sections of the oceans are warmer than the eastern section owing to the influence of trade winds. Now here, you are expected to know the wind pattern. You are expected to correlate it with the oceanographic factor of upwelling and downwelling. Right? So you have multiple different concepts at play, and both these concepts need to be addressed. Right? So in the tropical zone, the western sections of the oceans are warmer than the eastern sections owing to the influence of trade winds. Now the trade winds, they have a pattern of blowing from east to west. So in the western section, they will lead to accumulation of warm surface water. So obviously the western section will be warmer. Then in the temperate zone, the westerlies make the eastern section of the oceans warmer than the western sections. Again, the same principle at play. So these are the concept based questions. Here you will also find UPSC to be asking you questions regarding jet streams, monsoons and so on. Then you are also confronted with certain kinds of factual questions. These factual questions which might immediately and initially scare you, but then these are the questions which are based on current affairs. Now this was a question asked in the prelims of 2022. Look at the question. Consider the following countries: Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan. Which of the above have borders with Afghanistan? Now you know, if you have looked at the map carefully, that Azerbaijan does not share any of its boundaries with the region of Afghanistan, if you have followed news carefully and if you have regularly looked at Atlas. Then immediately you will be able to eliminate wherever one is given, and automatically you will arrive at the correct answer as well. So here, always a regular updation with the Atlas is required, rather than relying on a list which is circulated in the market few days before the prelims examination that learn all the capital cities north to south, east to west, etc. Never rely on that list. Always do the first-hand study and first-hand exploration of the Atlas itself. That will give you a much greater in-depth understanding of the entirety of the syllabus. So that is where the syllabus of the prelims and the preparation for the prelims can be concentrated upon, and overall you can expect yourself to do particularly well in the prelims exam. Here, always keep one thing in mind. The key to scoring well in the subject of geography, just like other subjects in the prelims, the key is revision. The more you are able to revise, better you shall be able to perform as well. And this revision will come only when your content materials are restricted. Not when you have 10 different reference materials, you will never be able to revise properly. So keep your content materials restricted, revise them regularly, be regular with current affairs, and automatically you shall be meritorious and successful in the prelims. Thank you.